Dear students, you are welcome back to the e-learning platform of KTHM College, and this is Sanjay Rathod is here. Dear students, today we are going to discuss the prose called "How Much Land Does a Man Need?" which is written by Leo Tolstoy. Before starting the prose, it is important to have a brief introduction of the author. Then let's have a brief introduction of the Leo Tolstoy. He was born on September 9, 1828 in the Tula Oblast region of Russia. He was an aristocrat and landowner who wrote primarily about his own class. He was orphaned by the time he was 9 and lost additional close relatives by the age 13. He and his siblings were raised by their relatives. Tolstoy never completed his university education but was successful in the military, earning promotions and a citation for bravery under fire. In 1862, Tolstoy married Sofia Andreevna Bess, and the couple moved to the family estate, Yasnaya Polyana. There, Tolstoy wrote his greatest literary works. It was at his estate that Tolstoy wrote the novel for which he became most famous and celebrated as one of the world's greatest novelists. His greatest literary masterpieces are War and Peace, which is written during the period 1865 to 69, then Anna Karenina, having the period 1875 to 77. After completing his masterworks, Tolstoy began to experience a profound and life altering spiritual crisis. It was brought on by his fear of death and his conviction that he was not living as what he called an authentic life. Eventually, he came to hate his life as an aristocrat and desired to give away his wealth. In his early period of spiritual transformation, he was reading the philosophers like Plato, Benedict Spinoza, Immanuel Kant, Friedrich Wilhelm Joseph Schelling, and George William Friedrich Hegel. The German philosophers Schopenhauer had an enormous influence on Tolstoy. He would eventually explore the tenets of Eastern religions and as well, specifically Hinduism and Buddhism, as before ultimately converting to Christianity. Not surprisingly, Tolstoy's fictions reflected his spiritual conversion. In the early and mid 1880s, he wrote a series of moralistic short stories. These stories explored values that affected the common people, such as love, family, and the search for happiness. Among them was How Much Land Does a Man Need?, in which Tolstoy examines the destructive effects of greed and ambition on the life of a simple Russian peasant. Irish novelist James Joyce, who later called Tolstoy's parable the greatest story that the literature of the world knows. Tolstoy's reflections on authentic human values culminated in the novella The Death of Ivan Ilyich, an indictment of the bourgeois and aristocratic classes the author knew well. The book delves deeply into the inauthentic life that, in Tolstoy's views, causes the greatest fear of death. Most of the works that followed the death of Ivan Ilyich explicated Tolstoy's religious beliefs and his ideas about how to live an authentic and Christian life. These works include fiction such as Kreutzer Sonata about an unhappy marriage and non-fiction such as The Kingdom of God is Within You. Tolstoy's religious belief impelled him to try to free his serfs, the peasant farmers who were bound to serve Tolstoy because they lived on the land. In 1856, however, The Serbs thought these efforts was a trick and Tolstoy failed to liberate them. Tolstoy also tried to give away all his land and possessions to live in poverty as Christ had taught. These radical ideas led to intense conflict with his wife, who was naturally concerned about the economic welfare of her numerous children and her life. Dear students, this was the brief introduction to author and his life. And now we have a story to discuss. In a brief, the story divides in a 10 divisions, and those 10 divisions will be discussed in a in this way one by one. In a part first, the story opens in a Russian peasant village in the late 19th century. This is the opening of the story. A wealthy elder sister visits her younger sister, a peasant who lives in the village. The elder sister brags about her lavish lifestyle and mocks her sister's poverty. As it happens in our day-to-day life, one tries to overcome as well as dominate to others. The same, the elder sister tries to dominate the younger in the story. But the younger sister retorts her way of life is more secure since the elder sisters may lose her wealth. And she also compares the difference between the life of a countryside and the life of a urban. The life of urban also has some shortcomings as well as you know uh, goodness and plus point. On the other hand, the same as with the life of a countryside. The people living in a countryside, they get fresh air to breathe, they get a abundant food to consume as well as use. The same thing doesn't happen with the people, uh, the people those who live in a city. And finally, she also adds that money leads to the dangerous temptation like gambling and drinking. The younger sister insists that one day the man of a woman who is a part of a city, he has to face the temptations like gambling and drinking, and he will fall victim to the out culture as well as a fashionable lifestyles. When the communication was going on between the conversation was going on between the two sisters, the husband of a younger sister, Pehom, he listens and he also responds in a positive way, and he says that privately he agrees his lifestyle keeps him busy and free from temptation. Though they are the part of the village, still they are free from the temptations and these out culture as well as fashionable lifestyles. He longs for more land, and he says that what shortcomings as well as what they have only lack, and the lack is having no more and more land. He longs for more land, however, and he thinks if he had enough land, he wouldn't even fear the devil. But the devil is hiding in the house, and here's Pehom's thought. He resolves to get the best of Pehoms by tempting him with land. Actually, the desire is expressed by Pehom. If he had a or if he have a lot of land, then he will not fear to the devil. The second chapter begins with the new discussion. The next winter, a landowner near Pehom's peasant commune decides to sell her privately owned land. Pehom has often been fined by the landowner's steward for accidentally letting his animals onto her property. At first, he and the other peasants in his commune try to buy the land collectively. The devil tempts them to argue, however, and they can't agree on a price. The peasants decide to purchase land individually instead. Pahom and his wife saves money and buy a 40-acre farm on the landowner's estate. Pahom is excited and he's never had his own land before. In this way, the second division of the story ends here. And in third one, there is a description of a landowner and the Pahom. As a landowner, Pahom runs into new problem. His neighbor's animals now graze on his property constantly. At first, Pahom forgives his neighbors and don't have much land themselves. Eventually, though he has had enough, he complains to the district court. His neighbors are punished with fines. They openly resent Pahom as a result. An unknown culprit cuts down trees on his property, and Pahom falsely accuses a peasant named Simon. Meanwhile, Pahom hopes to increase his land holdings with he hears several neighbors are moving away. One day, Pahom hosts a visiting peasant who lives beyond the Olga River. The visitor tells Pahom about the cheap and fertile farmland beyond the Volga. Each peasant is guaranteed 25 acres and the opportunity is to buy freehold or privately owned land. Eager to leave his village, Pahom moves his family to the new location. Pahom applies and is accepted into a commune in the new village. He stands there or treats to the elders, a ritual in which he pays for their food, drink, and entertainment. His 125 acres make him wealthier than ever. Soon, however, he realizes he doesn't have enough good soil as to sow a steady crop of wheat. He needs virgin, unfarmed soil or you know fallow land, soil that goes without crop for a season before it can be farmed again. And the market for land is competitive. So Pahom has to scramble every year to rent what he needs. He starts saving up purchase freehold land. After 3 years, he is close to buying 1,300 acres of his own. Then he hosts land dealer who is traveling from a settlement belonging to the Bashkirs, a nomadic Turkish tribe in eastern Russia. The dealer claims the Bashkirs are selling virgin soil for less than 2 cents an acre. Pahom is intrigued by the good land and low price. Then next, as soon as the dealer leaves, Pahom and his servant head for the Bashkis land, traveling for 7 days. A good-natured people, the Bashkis live in a tent and spend their summers eating, drinking, and enjoying themselves. The Bashkis are delighted to host Pahom. They find an interpreter since the Bashkirs don't speak Russian. Following local custom, Pahom gives gifts to his host and they offer to repay us him with us anything he wants. Pahom asks for some of their land. Privately, the Bashkirs discuss his request, laughing. They decide as Pahom can choose as much as land he wants, but they debate whether to get their chief to approve the gift. In the chapter number 6, it means in a division number 6, the chief returns to the tent. He agrees to let Pahom take all the land he likes. Pahom asks us for a signed as deed to secure his ownership, and the chief agrees to this as well. The chief then says the price of the land is 1,000 rubles a day. Pahom is confused after listening such a large amount as well as big amount of land. How can he measure land by a day? The chief explains Pahom can have all the land he can cover on foot during one day from sunrise to sunset. If Pahom doesn't return on the same day to the spot where he began, though he will lose his money. The chief suggests Pahom use a spade to dig hole and mark where he has been. Delighted, Pahom anticipates getting more land than ever. That night, Pahom can hardly sleep. He plans to cover 35 miles the next day. He imagines all the farming he can accomplish once the land is his. Before dawn, He dreams the chief is sitting outside his tent laughing. The chief becomes the dealer who told him about the Bashkir land. The dealer turns into the peasant who urged him to go beyond the Volga. Finally, the peasant becomes the devil who is chuckling. In front of the devil lies a dead man, and Pehom is shocked to realize the dead man is himself. He wakes horrified, but he quickly dismisses the dream, eager to begin measuring his land. He gathers the Bashkirs. In a section number 8, Pehom and Bashkirs arrive at the steppes or large traceless plain. Just before sunrise, after giving a chief 1000 rubles, Pehom prepares for the journey, bringing bread and water with him. He decides to go toward the rising sun. As the day begins, Pehom walks at a regular pace. He soon notices the land gets better the farther he travels. The rising heat makes him tired, and he wants to stop and rest till he convinces himself to keep going. By mid-afternoon, he reluctantly turns around, worried if he keeps going, he will go too far to return. Now, Pehom is exhausted and in pain. He makes his way back to the Bashkirs. He panics since the sun is already starting to set. He regrets marking off too much land. Pehom runs as quickly as possible to get back in time. Soon, he can't breathe. The Bashkirs call to him from the steppe. The chief is laughing, and Pehom remembers this dream from the night before. Though Pehom is now convinced he will die, he keeps running. The sun appears to set just as he reaches the steppe, but Pehom thinks the Bashkirs can still see the sun from where they are standing. He runs up the steps and collapses. He has made it back with a moments to spare. Still laughing, the chief praises Pehom's effort, but soon the Bashkirs and Pehom's servant realize Pehom is dead. Pehom's servant buries him in a 6 foot long grave. The narrator remarks that these 6 feet are all the land Pehom needs, and it means that what is the requirement of our life? We should, frame it. If you are unable to realize our need, then definitely the fall is inevitable, and we have to face the danger which is generated by the greed. Dear friends, this was the summary of a story in a brief, and in a coming video we'll discuss the remaining part. Thank you.